I don't know how well this might show up, but I'm going to give it a try. Since that run I took on this bike yesterday, I've got it back on the bike lift and got the sump plate off again and the scavenge strainer. Nothing alarming in there. And I was thinking last night, I wonder how I could try and see if there's any play between the crank and its timing side bush without taking the engine half apart, and I thought I'd give this a try. And I'm going to lay the camera on its back and we're going to be looking up at the crank through where the sump plate cover fits, and I'll see if I can demonstrate what I've done. And using this method I haven't actually found any play. I thought I might sort of see and feel the crank clunking up and down as I try to lever it, but I'll put the camera on its back and I'll try and go through the process of what I've been doing. Now bear with me, I'll get some light on it as well. If I put a screwdriver in there, there's a small gap between part of the casting where the scavenge pipe comes through and the flywheel of the crank, and if I lever upwards, I was expecting to sort of get a bit of a clunk and an oily squelch, but I'm not actually picking anything up. So that there, testing it like that, I'm not picking up any play in the timing side bush. Although obviously I'll look further into it. I was really expecting to find quite an alarming amount there, but it looks like I'm going to have to take the timing side of the engine apart and or take the head off at least before I get so much as a sniff of what is actually going on with this engine. I'm just going to leave the light shining there and the camera going, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to just turn the engine over by the kickstart, and for my own benefit as well as anyone else's, I'll get a good view of the flywheel on the crank as it spins round, in case there may be something untoward there. I'm also going to check that the bolts that hold the flywheel onto the crank are done up tightly. Right, I think we've gone right round, possibly a couple of times there. I might be able to get a reasonable look at that, but also I'm just going to just try a socket on the flywheel bolts and just make sure that none of them are loose. But it is looking like, regardless of all this, that we're going to have to go into the engine. But if there's no play in the timing side bush and the top end components and big ends check out okay, that can only really leave us with crankshaft balance, which has not been an issue on any of the A65s I've worked on in the past, but there's always a first time, I suppose. Anyway, that'll do for now. I'm going to check the flywheel bolts on the crank and make sure they're all tight. It'd be nice to find one or two of them a bit loose and tighten them up and sort the problem, but I won't hold my breath, and we'll get back to this for the next instalment. Moving on a little, I've been checking I've checked the 3 crankshaft flywheel bolts to make sure that they are tight. Hopefully we can see one of them there now, and all of those are present and correct. None of them are loose, so the flywheel's not rattling around on the crank. So my only options next, obviously I'll speak to the owner, are either going to be start at the top and get the head off and see if I can see anything in there, or strip the timing side and just see what I might find in there. But there's nothing really sort of jumping out at me, and some of the play I've picked up on these machines in their crankshafts, in their timing side bushes, would have been I would have been able to pick it up straight away using that method probably, although this is the first time I've done it. But by levering up on the crankshaft through that opening in the bottom of the crankcase, levering between the edge of the crankcase and the edge of the crank flywheel would certainly make the crank move up and down in a sloppy bush, and I wasn't picking anything up like that, but obviously it'd be a good idea to go further into it and see what we've got, I think.